Welcome to She Sight Magazine's wonderful podcast, yet another amazing episode where we feature amazing, fantastic women, achievers, successful women who have carved their niche in their domains. And today, right now, I'm at Melbourne, and I don't know how to describe her, a wonderful personality whom I have met a couple of times, and I thought She Sight audience needs to listen to her story, not just because of what an amazing person she is, but because of the work that she is doing. I'm so proud and honored to welcome Miss Rochelle Courtenay to this episode of She Par, featured on She Sight magazine. Let's get started. I have the first question for you, Rochelle. Why are you doing what you are doing?
Yeah, so I started Share the Dignity when I read an article that talked about the fact that there were 48,000 women who were experiencing homelessness in Australia. And I thought, oh my God, that is so many people. But to read what I read next, and that they were using what about toilet paper and socks and newspaper to deal with their period in Australia, the lucky country, I thought, oh my God, how does that even happen? How did I actually get to be 44 years of age and not even know that that could be an issue for somebody? I had suffered severely with endometriosis. So for me, my periods were never a normal part of my life. They were absolutely abnormal. They were horrendous pain. There were a lot of bleeding. I could not have got through my day without a tampon, pads, sometimes even having to sit on a towel. But I couldn't imagine doing that while being homeless, not having a shower, not having access to a bathroom, let alone just not being able to afford period products. So I think that if I hadn't suffered severely from endometriosis, Share the Dignity probably wouldn't exist. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. But it's the stories, it's the people that keeps me going back to why we do what we do.
That brings me to the next question. What is the change that you wish to see in this world, in this domain?
Yeah, look, I would love to see in this world that people openly discuss periods.
Yes, that's precisely what I wanted to talk more today.
Yeah.
Because I think this is still a very, very taboo topic, even in the so-called developed societies, and people are afraid or people are shamed for even talking about period as well as menstrual hygiene and other matters. So, how are you navigating this area?
Yeah, it's probably been when people say what's been the hardest part about your charity, it's the fact that we are dealing with periods and something that nobody has ever openly spoken about in the world, really, not just Australia. And the fact that we're talking about poverty. So you put them two topics together. Women are not proud to be in poverty and they're not proud to have their periods. So how do we change that? We change that through education. We change that through, and the beauty of social media, where people are starting to now feel comfortable to have conversations around menstruation, which we then see our young daughters and our daughters then going, oh, okay, well, that's different, right? Very different for me in my 50s than it was when I was growing up. But I do hope for a world for our younger generation that talking about periods is no different to talking about getting new tires on their car, right? And having that education for boys and girls is so vitally important, and not separating boys from classrooms
100%.
is where the shame and stigma starts, right? And then not educating boys. I mean, there's so many layers to that. But in our bloody big survey, it just showed us that 63% of Australian women felt like they were not adequately educated around menstruation. That's huge.
Yes.
Behavior?
Is this 63% men or women?
No, only females. So only
females.
females.
Oh
Imagine,
my God. And
imagine what that would be for boys. It would have to be less than, imagine. Which we've now created great assets like Bro in the Know. So what does a brother need to know when his sister's going through her first period? What does a dad need to know? Because unfortunately, there are massive holes in our education structure. So now we've put all of those assets, even for what does a workplace need to know? Now, we know that 23% of women drop out of the workplace when they get into the menopause era. And it's really because they don't understand what's happening to their body. Their workplace doesn't understand, and they just go, you know what, I'm out, it's too hard. This is when we get into our superpower, when we get into our menopause era, right? So how do we adequately educate everybody around every piece to do with menopause, menstruation and menopause?
That's brilliant. So I know we touched upon so many things that you're doing, but for the benefit of the audience, would you like to list the main activities that you do or you envision through your nonprofit?
Yeah, so Share the Dignity does 2 collections a year. In March and August, we put collection boxes out all over Australia. So Woolworths, which is the biggest supermarket chain in Australia, has the collection boxes at the front of every store, but we also have another 1,000 plus businesses and retail outlets that have those boxes there for people to make donations in. We then work with around 3,500 charities in Australia to get those products out to every woman who's spending time in a domestic violence shelter, those that are experiencing homelessness. But then there is this big pool of people now who live below the poverty line. So 5.5 million Australians live below the poverty line. You've got to imagine that at least 1 million of those are menstruating. So this is why our advocacy is so important. So we do those 2 drives a year. We also do It's in the Bag, which is my favourite part of the charity. It's where we ask Australians to fill a handbag with life's essentials, things like shampoo, conditioner, toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, soap, period products. Then we get them out to every woman spending Christmas in a domestic violence shelter because it is the only gift that most of them will get. And so to hear them talk about how that bag potentially is the only gift that they've had since they were a little girl, and for them to just feel the value and the importance of the love of somebody that they're never going to meet is so important.
Coming back to talk about the beginning of Share the Dignity, how did you, I mean, you definitely shared your own struggles of endometriosis, but I'm more curious about how did you, on one fine day, decide to actually launch this kind of an initiative?
It didn't just kind of happen in one. On the 1st of March in 2015, a month after I had read that first article, I asked my daughter to set up the Facebook page. So, I don't proclaim to have all of the skills that would be required. What I do is surround myself with amazing people and get people to use the skills that they have to help us, because I would do just about anything, but don't sit me down in front of a spreadsheet because that would not be the best use of my skills, right? So I really tried to find and lead the charity to find skills that everybody had and to get them to do things that they liked. And so at the beginning, I had my own personal training business. And so I literally had that business for the first 5 years of Share the Dignity. So I had 2 full-time businesses. But at the beginning, little did I know to collect pads and tampons, I needed to have a constitution, a board of directors, pay fees and permits in every state. All of those things that I had no idea about. So again, I just had to surround myself with and people that had skills in sets that I didn't know. And DLA Piper came on board, who is a legal firm, and gave us $30,000 in donations in setting up all of that up. And it was just a learn and grow. And I would still say, sitting here now, 9.5 years, I'm still learning and growing, right? So
I think every entrepreneur's journey, I mean, solid, someone who has done incredible work, especially being a social entrepreneur, it's one of the toughest things, if you ask me. Tell us more about that survey and what are you aiming to do with that survey result?
So I'll give you the content behind it. So I created a world's first dignity vending machine. So that vending machine came about because I was in a homelessness hub in Victoria where a woman had come up to the counter and asked 2 men if she could have period products. And one man said to the other, do you know where the period products are? And he goes, oh yeah, they're upstairs. He comes down and goes, do you want pads or tampons? I would have died on the spot. I would have died. And I just said, can you please give them both to her? Anyway, and I said to the manager who I was standing there talking to, why do you not just give her the products that we give you, pop them in the bathroom so she doesn't have to ask anyone? And she said, oh, we can't do that because they will try to take them back to the supermarket and swap them for food. So they're choosing their dignity over food, right? Understandable. But I wanted to alleviate that problem, and I wanted people to just have access to period products in a bathroom where they didn't have to ask anyone, because I would never have asked anyone. So it took about a year to find somebody who would create a vending machine for me that dispensed the free period products.
Okay.
So the period products needed to be a bespoke pack that could never be returned.
Mm.
You couldn't swap it for your dignity.
Yeah.
It was your dignity that was the most important thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it had to have a timing mechanism on it
Okay.
so that they couldn't just empty. I reached out to QUT in Queensland University of Technology, where we had won a grant. We paid them some money to do a body of research because we'd started to we had vending machines in schools in low socioeconomic areas and some medium to low socioeconomic. It was so problematic to get through ethics and to get the data from the students. It was just a problem, and I just went, oh my God, this is ridiculous. All right, I'm going to do my own survey. We called it the Bloody Big Survey. We used a lot of the questions that the QUT had already based it on. So we asked that with the ethics in mind. We learnt so much from the QUT, right? So and we went out to the population. We went out to an Australian population. We had 125,000 responses in our very first Bloody Big Survey.
Wow.
So in doing our 2021 Bloody Big Survey, it showed us that 1 in 4 Australians had been through period poverty, which was astounding. We just thought that was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
We thought the problem was, well, you know what? When I first started the charity, I thought the problem was for women who had fled domestic violence and experiencing homelessness, but it was touching on everyday Australians, and it was something that no one had ever talked about. And so now, proudly, after doing that one, we were able to advocate for nearly every state and territory to provide period products to high school students, right? So in every state and territory in Australia, and for those that don't know, we have 8 different states and territories in Australia. Most of those now all provide period products to high schools, some primary schools and some TAFEs. Fabulous advocacy, right?
That's great.
But our 2024 survey, we brought about on the 1st of March this year and closed it on the 31st of May. We had 153,000 responses. I nearly had to sell my soul. I mean, getting that kind of data is like herding cats. Yeah. So we were absolutely blown away by it, but more blown away by the stats. Results are, I just thought they would be better. We need to.
Would you like to share a few major key insights which is really alarming that you found?
12% of Australians have needed a pad in a public hospital and haven't been able to get one. So you can get your head sutured with from a head knock. You can get morphine, you can get an operation, but you can't get a pad in a public hospital, in any hospital, to be honest. So I really want to have it federally mandated that all hospitals must provide period products.
Brilliant, yes.
I want to make sure that in the statistics, it showed us in 2021 that 19% of university students couldn't afford period products.
Coming to that.
But in this survey, it's 24%. Yes, it's increased. And that's probably because of the cost of living, right? So provide period products. I will absolutely die if in the next 2 years that period products aren't available in TAFEs and universities, any higher education. I want to unpack the way that people are educated around menstruation, not just at school, but through social media, through, I want to see TV ads. Through the health systems, and I've had and we are at the moment producing a 90-second animated video that explains menstruation to anybody without any language.
Now, you mentioned about the education piece, and I'm more interested about, of course, you can definitely educate through social media and the videos and everything. But are you also considering some kind of curriculum and school level education? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, so we have a program called Period Talk. It is these 6 sassy kids delivering period education to kids. So it's never been done before, and that is what we need to do. And it's got 2 boys in there.
Oh, nice.
We need to make sure that we're educating to the level that they want to learn, and that teachers, it's not a one lesson hit wonder, because what happens to the kids, me, I was class clown, I probably wasn't listening anyway. I was probably talking to somebody and disrupting somebody. So if I had to miss that one class, this is something that happens every single month to a woman, and we're educating them very quickly once to say tick, it's done. And to be honest, I've had meetings with our federal federal member for education.
Mm-hmm.
And we're saying, oh, we're leaving that to the states, but they don't have to tick it off. No teacher needs to tick it off.
It's not mandatory.
It's not
as such.
absolutely okay.
Yeah.
So we need to be looking, and we know we've had these conversations. We can't keep doing what we've been doing because it is not working. It is an absolute flaw in our education department system. Yeah. So they are one part of the system, and that there are a lot of different moving pieces. And I don't think it's it's not an easy fix. Yeah. Because changing the curriculum is going to take a few years. Yeah. And we're going to have to bring all the people to the table so that they all feel heard and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. But thing in more incredible, which is changing the law, the policy around the GST. That's brilliant. Would you like to share how you advocated for that?
Yeah. So we paid the GST on period products. Yeah. Which in other countries is like a vax. And so there's only 3 countries in the world that have now had their GST removed. So the vending machines that I was talking about earlier, I thought that when we wanted to stock them, that we could use the donated products, get the cardboard box printed and put the products into that. Okay. But we couldn't because the period products fell under the Therapeutic Goods Association Act, which meant that they were classified as medical. Ooh. But they were taxing us like they were a luxury. So it was like, they're what? That doesn't make any sense to me, right? So that was the first, even though that not many people in Australia probably even knew that we were getting taxed, right? Because you go about and you do what you do.
You just pay, yeah.
Anyway,
looking at those
so when I learnt that, I was really peeved, right? So I went to a university students at UQ who were in their final year of law. And I said, please, can you do a research project for me on what countries have had this removed? What is all the information I need to have to fight this?
Oh, great. Okay.
And so then I went to a politics at the pub where our then Prime Minister was there, and I asked him a question and said, hi, my name is Rochelle. I would like to know from Share the Dignity, I would like to know if you think that it is fair to tax our period products which actually fall under the Therapeutic Goods Association Act, but you're actually deeming them as a luxury. And he said, I've heard no noise from any of the states and territories, and we won't be removing GST. We will be adding GST to more products. And I went home in an absolute rage. Filed, you know when you type and you really rage, filed a federal petition. That federal petition needed to have 100,000 signatures in 30 days. We then had over 120,000 signatures in the 30 days, the most online signed petition Australia had ever seen. Wow. That then needed to be heard in the government. Yeah. So I wanted to play the game different to what had ever been played before. So every couple of years there'd be a change.org petition that would circulate where people would say, oh, this is wrong, which was great because people were outraged, but it wasn't getting us the outcome that we needed, right? So it had to be heard in Parliament. I then had to play a political game. So I had to get the Greens on board, who were on board very early. I then went to another politics at the pub where Bill Shorten, who was our opposition leader at that stage, was there, and I asked the exact same question in the same framework. And Bill Shorten's response was very different. He said, thank you, Rochelle. Thank you for the work that you do. Me and my wife were talking about how expensive the period products were on the weekend, and I would like to have a further conversation with you. Yeah. So then the Labor Party, it was an election year, and the Labor Party said 3 days later, can you come to Sydney? We're going to do a press release about how we're going to win this election, and we're going to put this as an election promise, which was great. I was just playing a political game, right? Yeah. I wanted bipartisan support, so I needed the Liberal Party to also come on board. I gave everybody in our audience, so all of our supporters, and we had 200,000 people following us on social media, gave them the tool to write a letter to our health minister and to our prime minister every single day until they met with us about the fact that this was not okay. And so I remember our then Minister for Health contacting me. It was 6:10 on a Thursday afternoon from the back of his probably a limo or probably his car, and saying, will you stop contacting me, you and your people? I said, well, thank you for the phone call. Now let me tell you that you as the health minister, under the law and the Constitution of Australia, and I knew this because I'd had the university students prepare me everything, which is why I always come back, you are never in this alone. You have to use the skill sets of everybody around you, right? And you have the ability as our health minister to remove the GST component on your own.
Yeah.
You do not need to have the states sign off on this. That is a GST issue. This is a health issue.
Yes.
And that you're being contradictory in saying that they fall under the Therapeutic Goods Association Act, so they're deemed medical, but you're taxing them as a luxury.
Yeah.
And if you do not remove the GST off period products, that Australian women will do a class action suit to file for our 20 years of GST that has been paid, because the legal team also told me that that was something I had up my sleeve, right?
Yeah.
I think that they pretty much went, oh my God,
That
we
would be
do not
trillions.
want that. It would be astronomical. And
Exactly.
for them to remove the GST off period products was like 0.01% of the GST component, right?
Yeah.
So it was quite negligible. And on the 1st of January
Hats off.
2019, the GST was removed.
That's brilliant. It's really a massive victory, and I'm really, I'd like to thank you on behalf of all the women. So you being a leader, now let's talk. That brings me to this aspect of being a leader and facing opposition. I'm sure in your journey you would have faced a lot of opposition as well. Would you like to share any story of opposition and how you navigated it?
Yeah, I mean, opposition is there in everything that you do, right? So
because I'm asking this specifically because you are, talking about something which many people do not even like to talk, and even if, it's more of a, oh, she's talking about this, I'm not interested, that kind
Tune
of
out.
thing.
Yeah, I will say that that's probably been the biggest barrier.
Yeah.
But I will say that opposition to me is just work out a different way to do it, right? So I played netball all my life. I played from the time I was 10 years old till I was 50. Okay. So 40 years of my life, I played netball. I played in a team. Every single person on that team was needed. So for me, I learned a lot of my leadership in playing netball and playing a team sport, coaching that sport, but understanding that as a goal defense, I was not going to get the goal in that got all the claps, but that goal shooter couldn't have done it without the rest of the team bringing it down, right? So I always go back to that leadership analogy, but I also know that opposition is, for me, if that girl got that goal in, then I had to work out a different way to defend her, right? So if I go back and take that sports analogy into everything I did, I had to find a way in every conversation to make it about somebody else. So when I talk about how do we get corporates on board, why did Woolworths come on board? They already support lots of other charities, but I bet you there's not very many charities out there that they would make money from. We are one of the charities that you would make money from as a business. People don't go in there just to buy our period products and donate. They're going to get milk and they're going to get bread and then they're going to get something else that they needed. So they were going to take a market share from the others. I always knew to play the game of what's in it for me, for the person who was sitting across from me.
Entrepreneurial wisdom, which anyone who is working on any idea should be taking home. If you're able to provide value for the other person sitting on the other side, what is in it for me, then you are in the game. Now, I think we spoke a lot about the works that you do, and I can clearly see the kind of passion and energy you bring into this. What is your vision for the future? Where do you see? I mean, you briefly touched upon saying that we don't want to exist after 10 years, but is there anything that you want to see before you reach that stage?
Yeah, look, I would like it to be abnormal for workplaces to not provide period products. Because our bloody big survey showed us that 63% of women are missing out on work because of their period. And for most part, that is because of a fear of leaking. So provide period products. That's an easy get, right? So I want provision of period products in all hospitals. I actually want every state and territory to be providing period products. So they should be available in all their libraries and their swimming pool. If you need
public places, basically.
Absolutely public places. So that is about to roll out in Victoria. So you're about to see Victoria roll out 15 vending machines that have access to period products. In ACT, they passed a bill. So I just need to do that state by state. And then we are sitting in a place where I feel like people who need them will know where to get them. And I will be very happy about that. We then also need to educate people appropriately. I think that we will, as a charity, move into doing 2 collections of the It's in the Bag donations twice a year to make sure that people have got something for Mother's Day and that they've got something for Christmas. that will never be something that the government will produce. And I know a lot of the work that we do, like providing it's in the bag donations out to remote Indigenous communities. A lot of the charities that we work with, and we work with 3,500 charities around Australia, they will use those bags to get remote Indigenous community women to come in and get their breast screens or get their blood tests or get their gynae checks, right? So they're being used as a tool that are more than just a bag.
Brilliant idea. I love that. It's like, win-win.
Yes, absolutely. And it's all about the health of the women. Right? So, and access to period products is much more than just period products in your undies. It's about decreasing anxiety. It's about increasing your self-worth. It's about all of those things. So, yeah.
Before we wind up, I just wanted to know one last question regarding your experience with the Indigenous people, and would you like to share any transformative experience that touches your heart?
I think the story that has probably touched my heart the most was sitting on a bed with a young lady who had a baby. And she told me about the story about how she was 14 years old living on the streets in Adelaide. And it was safer for her to be on the streets than it was to live in her own home. I'm not going to tell you her harrowing story, but for her to receive a bag was the first gift that she'd had since she was 8 years old. She was 24 years old, sitting on the edge of a bed in a domestic violence shelter. And she told me how only 2 weeks before that she was stealing maternity pads from the supermarket because what she needed for her baby was more important than that. But what she told me next is etched in my heart forever and forever changed me. That when she was 14 years old, that she knew to go into a laundromat and steal somebody else's socks out of the laundromat to put in her underwear to be able to deal with her period. And I will fight for that little girl that never, ever needs to do that ever again, no matter where she is in the world.
That's such a, emotional, overwhelming story. Thank you for sharing that story. And I think that precisely summarizes why you are doing what you're doing. And I am 100% sure that the world needs people like you who are doing such amazing work. And not everybody actually gets into doing this kind of a work. And really, I want to place my appreciation for whatever you have been doing. And I really wish you that you fulfill your dreams of making this world a better place in terms of menstrual hygiene and women's health. Thank you once again for joining us in this conversation, and I hope that all your dreams come true.
Thank you. I hope that my granddaughter never has to worry about any access to period products.
One last message, if you want to give to our women audience out there, what would be that?
Yeah, I think if you see something wrong, you can be part of the solution to fix it, right? Just surround yourself with incredible people and you'll all work out a way to make it better. Because the problem that we walk past, if we don't try to find a solution, we're part of the problem.
Yes, I love that. Thank you. Hello everyone. Before you move on to the next video, I have a request to make. If you like this video and this podcast, if you gained some valuable information out of this video, I would request you to click on the subscribe button as well as follow us on our social media pages. The links are given in our description. Also, do sign up to our website, www.shesitmag.com. We have amazing women stories as well as various women initiatives that are getting launched in the coming months. I'll see you there.